I'm Adelaide Whitlock, 37, and I'm a Navy commander assigned to the Defense Intelligence Agency. For 15 years, I quietly built the covers that kept my brother's reconnaissance Marines and their SEAL team alive overseas. But when a Marine attached to that same team grabbed me at a hotel bar in Coronado, and my own brother laughed across the room and called me a desk officer, I made a choice that changed everything. Have you ever been dismissed by the people you were quietly protecting? If so, tell me your story in the comments. You are not alone. Before I get into what happened, let me know where you're tuning in from. And if you've ever had to stand up for yourself after being wronged, hit that like button and subscribe. My father retired from the Marine Corps the summer I turned 14, and the house got smaller the day he came home for good. Walter Whitlock had been a Marine for 30 years, the last 7 of them in force reconnaissance, and when he walked through our front door in Jacksonville, North Carolina, with 30 years of duty stations packed into 2 olive drab duffel bags, the air in our kitchen changed. He took the seat at the head of the table that nobody had used. My brother Trent, who was 11 that summer, slid into the chair on Dad's right without being told. I was already there in the chair on his left. I had been sitting in that chair my whole life. But the chair on the right was now Trent's, and the chair on the left was a chair my father did not really see. It was not cruelty. That is the part I have spent 23 years trying to explain to people. My father did not raise his voice at me. He did not insult me. He did not call me names. He did not, as far as I can remember, ever tell me that I was less than my brother. What he did was simpler and harder to argue with. He looked through me. He moved his attention past my place at the table, the way a man on a long road looks past a familiar mile marker. I was there, and I was familiar, and I did not require comment. I knew the Marine Corps before I knew most of my own birthday parties. I knew the Eagle, Globe, and Anchor before I knew the alphabet. My earliest sharp memory is from the summer I was 7, standing in a row of folding chairs at Camp Lejeune, watching my father get promoted to Master Gunnery Sergeant. He was in his dress blues. The sun was on the back of his neck. He bent down to lift Trent up in front of the crowd and introduced him to the man pinning the chevron on his sleeve. "This is the next Marine in the line," my father said. Trent was 4. He couldn't have said a complete sentence to a stranger. My mother, Marlene, who knew my father better than he knew himself, reached down under the bleachers and squeezed my hand. She did not say anything. She just held on. I have thought a lot about that hand on mine. It was the first time my mother taught me to keep something inside that I could not show. By the time I was a teenager, the pattern was set. Trent was the Marine in the line. I was the daughter who got good grades. I was praised for my grades the way you would compliment a neighbor's dog. "Smart girl. Don't let it go to your head." That was Walter's signature line. He did not mean it cruelly. He meant it as something he had read in a Marine handbook and decided to apply to a 14-year-old who had brought home a near-perfect report card. I learned to put the report card on the counter face down and let my mother find it. She would set it back up in front of him when he came in from the garage, and he would glance at it, nod once, and walk through into the living room. My mother would meet my eyes across the kitchen. Sometimes she would mouth, "I am proud of you." Sometimes she would just shake her head, the smallest possible shake, and keep cooking. What I did not understand until I was much older was that my mother had been raised the same way. Her own father was a Korean War veteran who had treated her brothers as the future of the family and treated her as the help. She had married a Marine because her own father had been one too. She had spent her entire life inside the same arithmetic I was inside. She did not have the words to fight it. What she had was hands, and the way she squeezed mine under bleachers, and the way she set my report cards in front of my father, and the way she taught me to be patient with men who could not see me. I do not know if she ever forgave herself for not being able to teach me anything more. I forgave her a long time ago. When I was 17, I told my father in the front cab of his pickup, parked at the marina in New Bern, that I wanted to apply to the Naval Reserve Officers Training Corps at the University of Virginia. He had the radio on. He turned it off. His hands tightened on the wheel until I could see his knuckles. He did not look at me. He looked out at the water. He told me, in the same voice he had used to teach me to swim when I was 6, that Navy officers were accountants in uniform. He told me the Navy was a desk and the Marine Corps was a service. He told me that if I was going to do this, I should at least do it right. I sat in the passenger seat with my hands in my lap and let him talk himself out. When he was done, I told him I had already accepted the scholarship. He drove me home in silence. He did not punish me. He did not raise his voice. He did not even bring it up at dinner that night. He just let the silence sit. And the silence was a Walter Whitlock punishment more devastating than any insult would have been. My brother Trent, 15, watched me at dinner with the kind of nervous half-grin teenage boys wear when they realize the family they thought was permanent is moving in a direction they do not understand. He did not say anything to me. He never said anything to me about it. The morning I left for Charlottesville, my father walked me to the main gate of Camp Lejeune. He had decided, without consulting anyone, that the gate was where you said goodbye to a person who was going to serve. He did not hug me. He gave me a half salute, his right hand to the brim of an old field cap he had not worn in years, and he said the words, "Good luck." Then he turned around and walked back into the base. My brother Trent stood 3 steps behind him with his hands in his pockets and did not say anything at all. I drove away with a suitcase in the back of my mother's Civic and a Navy contract folder on the passenger seat. I did not cry. I had already finished crying. The University of Virginia did not feel like a university. It felt like a quiet room I had been waiting my whole life to walk into. I lived in a residence hall on Alderman Road for 2 semesters, then moved to an apartment on Wortland Street for the last 3 years. I was a midshipman in the Naval Reserve Officers Training Corps unit at UVA, and the unit was small enough that I knew everyone's name within a month. I took Russian and intelligence analysis and a course on the Soviet Union taught by a man who had spent 20 years inside the Defense Intelligence Agency. 3 years after I graduated, he would write me a letter of recommendation I still keep in a folder in my desk. My father and mother drove up for Parents' Weekend in the fall of my senior year. I was 21. I had been commissioned twice already in my head and would be commissioned for real in 7 months. My mother sat next to me at the dinner the unit hosted. My father sat across from a Marine option midshipman named Carter, and for an hour and 40 minutes, he asked Carter every question I had hoped he would ask me. He asked Carter where he was being assigned. He asked Carter what platoon he wanted. He asked Carter about the basic school, about Quantico, about the ages of his children. Carter was 22 and did not have children. My father asked him anyway. My mother watched it happen across the table. After dinner in the parking lot, she took my arm and said, "Your father's proud, Addie. He just doesn't know how to say it." I told her, more gently than I wanted to, that he knew how. He just would not. I commissioned in May of 2011. Walter and Marlene came. Trent, 18 and a high school senior, came in a dress shirt his mother had ironed. The commissioning ceremony at UVA was held in a hall with brass railings and high windows, and a chaplain who had been a Navy officer himself before he became a man of the cloth. My mother cried. My father stood. He did not cry. He shook my hand at the front of the hall like he was shaking the hand of a colleague's daughter. He said, "Congratulations." He used the word congratulations, the way a man uses the word fine when his wife asks how his day was. After commissioning, I reported to Norfolk and the Joint Intelligence Operations Center. I was a lieutenant junior grade by the end of 2013. I worked the night watch for a year, then the day watch for a year. Then I was put on a carrier strike group as the intelligence watch officer for 2 consecutive deployments. The work was real. The work was the only thing that mattered. I sat in a tactical flag command center in the South China Sea in the fall of 2016 and ran an intel watch through a 48-hour window in which I made calls that, 2 months later, were quietly written into a classified after-action report and read by people whose names I will never know. I called home from the port at Yokosuka, Japan, on a Sunday evening. My mother answered. She told me Trent had been accepted into the reconnaissance pipeline. My father had cried. I sat on a hotel bed 7,000 miles from home and listened to my mother tell me my father had cried over my brother's career. He had not cried at my commissioning. He had not cried at my promotion. He had cried over a piece of paper from the Marine Corps that said his son was going to be a reconnaissance Marine. I told my mother that was wonderful, and I meant it, and I held the phone away from my face for a moment and looked at the wall, and then I brought the phone back and said, "I have to go, Mom. The duty officer needs the room." In the summer of 2017, I had been selected for Defense Human Intelligence training at the Defense Intelligence Agency at Joint Base Anacostia Bowling. The selection meant that someone above me, someone I had never met, had read the after-action reports from the South China Sea and decided I was worth a gamble. I called Trent from a parking lot in Norfolk and told him I had been picked up. He laughed and asked me if that meant I would be working from home. He thought he was being funny. He said the words, "Get me a decoder ring." I laughed because he was my brother, and I had been laughing at his jokes since he was 4, and the muscle memory of laughing at my brother is so strong that I do not remember a single time in my life I did not do it when he wanted me to. I started at DIA in the fall of 2017. I was 28 years old. I was promoted to lieutenant commander in the spring of 2020. I was detailed to the Defense Clandestine Service in 2018. By 2022, I had moved into the Cover Operations Branch. The Cover Operations Branch is a quiet room, and the quiet room is mine. And what we do in the quiet room is build people. We build identities. We build companies. We build the paperwork that allows a Navy SEAL to walk into a port in Greece and present a customs official a passport in a name his own mother does not know. We build the door he walks back through. I spent a Christmas in Reston, Virginia in 2019 and flew home to Jacksonville on the 23rd. My father had 2 retired Marines over for dinner on Christmas Eve. He introduced Trent to them at the door. "This is my son, the operator, Recon Marine." He introduced me last. "This is my daughter." That was the whole introduction. The 2 retired Marines, men whose names I had been told as a child, nodded at me politely and turned back to my father and my brother, and the 3 Marines and the 4 glasses of brown liquor and the cigars they had been told they could smoke in the den moved past me into the den, and my mother and I washed wine glasses at the sink. She did not say anything. I did not say anything. I had stopped saying anything about it a long time ago. The Pacific Vista Hotel sits on Glorieta Boulevard on the south side of the island of Coronado, 2 blocks from the marina and 4 blocks from the front gate of Naval Amphibious Base Coronado. The bar at the Pacific Vista is on the ground floor of the hotel. It has a wood floor, a long polished walnut bar, 20 stools, 8 booths along the south wall, and overhead lighting that is the brightest hotel bar lighting I have ever sat under. The recessed lights are on a dimmer that the management refuses to dim. The bartender once told me the owners had decided that bright lighting reduced fights. I had thought about that more than once over the years. It was Friday, May 14th, 2026. I had been in town for 9 days for the final in-person debrief on the team's Eastern Mediterranean rotation. The team had rotated back to Coronado on the 5th. The debrief had been a series of long, quiet days in a sensitive, compartmented information facility down the boulevard. The work had gone well. The rotation had not been Beirut. Nothing had gone hot. The team had come home with all hands. It was 8:42 p.m. I was in the corner booth at the south end of the bar, in jeans and a navy blazer and a clean black t-shirt. Brunette hair down, my work-issued laptop open in front of me, working through the final encrypted summary I owed my director by Monday morning. I had a club soda with lime at my elbow. I had been there for 40 minutes. I had not looked up from the screen. I heard a Marine voice 3 stools down from the bar lift over the noise of the room. The voice said, "Hey, Whitlock, your boy needs backup on this one." I did not look up. I knew the name Whitlock at a Coronado bar could mean me, but it almost certainly did not. My brother was supposed to be at Camp Pendleton until the 17th. I kept my eyes on the laptop. I felt, before I saw, a body slide into the booth across from me. "You look lonely, sweetheart." His voice was 3 drinks deep and the kind of pleased with itself that drunk 28-year-old men get when they have decided you are going to be their story for the night. "Buy you a drink?" I looked up. He was in a polo shirt, sleeves stretched over arms that did recon work for a living, a thin gold chain at his neck. He had a tattoo on his forearm I recognized in 2 seconds. A recon dagger over a SEAL team insignia. The dagger was his. The insignia was the team he was attached to. The team I had been carrying for 4 years. I closed the laptop screen halfway. "I am working. Please give me some space." He laughed. He put his arm along the back of the booth seat. I do not believe he heard me. He turned his head toward the bar and called out, "Hey, Whitlock, Whitlock, your boy needs backup." My brother was 3 stools down at the bar in a dark t-shirt and jeans, a glass in his hand. He looked up. He saw me. He saw the man in the booth across from me. His face did the thing his face has always done in these moments. It went from confused to embarrassed to the thing my brother's face does when he decides to make a moment go away by laughing. He laughed, he shook his head, he said it loud enough for everyone at the bar to hear. "Bryce, relax. She's just a desk officer. She works for the government. She's not impressed by you." I sat very still. I had been at this table 40 minutes. I had been at this family 37 years. I knew my brother's voice the way a person knows the sound of their own front door closing. He had not just declined to defend me. He had handed Bryce Ramos permission. He had told another man at a bar that the woman in the corner booth was a desk officer and not worth his protection. Bryce took it as a dare. He leaned forward across the table. He reached out with his right hand and grabbed my wrist. He pulled it off the keyboard. The club soda tipped, the glass rolled. 2 ounces of cold water and lime went into my lap and across the keyboard. I felt the ice slide between my thigh and the booth. I did not flinch. I said very evenly, "Staff Sergeant, take your hand off me." He smiled. "Or what, Princess?" He stood up. He pulled me up by the wrist. His other hand came up and pressed against my shoulder, and he pressed me against the booth wall, and his face came close to mine, and I could smell the bourbon on his breath. I could feel the wall against my shoulder blades. I kept my eyes on his. I did not look at the door. The door opened. Lieutenant Commander Eli Marsh, in a dark polo and tan slacks and a Navy SEAL build he carries even at the end of a 61-day rotation, walked into the bar with Senior Chief Damon Vance 2 steps behind him. They were there to find Staff Sergeant Ramos. They had heard he was at the Vista. They were going to walk him back to base. Marsh's eyes went around the room the way Marsh's eyes go around any room in a sweep. They stopped at the booth at the south end of the bar. They saw a man's hand on a woman's shoulder, pinning the woman to the booth wall. Then they saw the woman's face. I watched it land. I saw Marsh recognize me, and I saw the temperature of the entire room drop 10 degrees through one man. He did not run. He walked. His voice cut the bar the way a knife cuts paper, quiet and final. "Staff Sergeant Ramos, stand, down." Bryce released my shoulder. He let go of my wrist. He turned to the voice. He saw his commanding officer. His body snapped to attention before his head caught up. Vance stepped between him and the booth. Marsh kept walking. He stopped 6 feet from me. He did not look at Bryce. He looked at me. "Commander Whitlock, I apologize for my Marine. Are you all right?" I nodded. I picked up the laptop. The water ran out of the bottom of the case onto the wood floor. Bryce's face was changing in real time. Trent, at the bar, set his glass down hard enough that the rim cracked. Marsh turned to face the bar. He spoke loud enough for every Marine and sailor and civilian guest in the Pacific Vista Hotel bar to hear him, because that was the choice he was making, and he wanted to make it on the record. "Staff Sergeant, the woman you just put your hands on is the case officer who built your cover. She is the reason your team came home from Beirut. She's the reason you came home from this rotation." He turned. He looked at my brother. His voice did not change. "Gunny, she's your sister." Trent did not answer. He could not lift his eyes off the bar. Marsh said, "Then you have some thinking to do." Room 412 at the Pacific Vista is on the 4th floor, facing the marina. I sat on the edge of the bed in a hotel robe, the wet jeans and blazer hanging over the shower bar in the bathroom, the laptop in a metal ice bucket of dry rice on the desk where I had set it 10 minutes after walking back upstairs. The desk light was on. The overhead light was off. The marina was a string of soft white lights through the window. I had been touched by hostile people in my career. I had not been touched by my own brother's silence. There is a difference. I had no language for the difference yet. I sat on the edge of the bed and waited for the language to arrive. It did not. The phone rang at 10:15. It was Iris Pemberton. Iris was my closest peer at the agency. We had met in 2018 at a Defense Human Intelligence course at Bowling. She had been a lieutenant by then, 2 years ahead of me on the agency clock. Iris is from Charleston and speaks the way a woman from Charleston speaks, which is to say she takes her time but never wastes a word. I told her what had happened. I did not embroider. I told her in 2 sentences. Marine attached to my SEAL team grabbed me at a hotel bar. Did not know who I was. My brother was there. Iris was quiet for 10 seconds. Then she said, Have you filed yet? Not yet. File the report in the morning, not tonight. Tonight you will write it angry, and you don't get to be angry on paper. You get to be a Navy commander on paper. The two are not the same. I laughed for the first time in 3 hours. I told her I would file in the morning. Addie. Her voice changed. She is not a woman who softens her voice often. She did now. You are allowed to be furious. You are not allowed to be small. I know which one you reach for first. Tonight you go for the first one, not the second. I told her I would try. There was a knock at the door at 11. I knew before I crossed the room who it was. Marsh, in a dark polo and the same tan slacks. Alone, no Vance. His hands in his pockets the way men keep their hands in their pockets when they want you to know they are not a threat. I let him in. He sat in the chair across the room because the chair was the farthest piece of furniture from the bed. He did not sit on the bed. He did not sit on the desk. He sat in the chair and put his elbows on his knees and looked at the carpet between his shoes. Commander, I came to apologize properly. I told him he did not have to. He told me he did. He told me the things a commanding officer tells a senior officer when his Marine has put hands on her. He told me Ramos was in temporary holding at the brig at Naval Base San Diego. He told me the report he would write in the morning. He told me he had already informed the Marine Corps liaison. He told me the administrative process would move. He told me I did not have to do anything I did not want to do. He looked up. He was 40 years old, give or take, the kind of SEAL team commanding officer who got the job because he had spent the previous 10 years being the man other men called when something had gone wrong. His eyes were tired in a way that was not about tonight. Commander, he didn't know who you were. That is not a defense. It is an aggravating factor. A Marine who would do this to a woman he didn't know is a Marine who would do it to any woman. The fact that the woman was you is incidental. The fact that he did it is the matter. I told him I knew that. I had been telling myself a version of that sentence in different ways since I had walked upstairs. I told him the worst part wasn't Bryce. He waited. My brother was at the bar, I said. My brother laughed. He was quiet for a long time, the kind of quiet a man learns in a sensitive, compartmented facility, the kind that does not need to be filled. Then he said, "Do you want to talk to him tonight, or in the morning?" I thought about it. I had been thinking about it since I had closed the hotel room door. Morning. I owe him at least one night of not knowing what I'm going to say. Marsh nodded. He stood up. He did not ask me anything else. He walked to the door, opened it, and turned back, his hand on the frame. Commander, I would like to brief the team on the Beirut Protocol when we get back to Dam Neck, in a skiff. I would like you in the room, not because I think you need it, because they do. I told him I would consider it. He left. I sat with my phone in my hand for a long time after he was gone. I scrolled back through 15 years of text messages with my brother. There were 9,042 of them. I had counted once on a quiet Sunday afternoon. Most of them were him asking for things. Could I lend him $300? Could I write a character reference for his recon application? Could I pick up Mom from the airport? Almost none of them were him asking how I was. I stopped at a photograph from June of 2014, Trent at his Marine basic graduation at Paris Island, the two of us standing on the parade ground, his Marine cover under his arm, my Lieutenant Junior grade collar device fresh on my khakis. He had his arm around me, I had my arm around him. We were both grinning. I looked at my own face in that photograph for a long time. I did not recognize the girl in the photograph. The girl in the photograph still believed she was going to win her family back. I set the phone face down on the bed. I went to the window. The marina lights were the same lights they had been when I had come into the room. The room was the same room. I was the same woman. The night was over, and the night was just beginning. The coffee stand at the south end of the Coronado Marina is run by a woman named Patty, who has been there for as long as the marina has had a marina. She knows me by my drink order, which is black coffee, 2 sugars, no cream. I had texted Trent at 6:15 Saturday morning and told him to meet me there at 8:15. He had answered, "Yes, ma'am," which is not a thing my brother had ever said to me in any text message in 15 years. I got there at 8. I sat on a wooden bench facing the water. My wrist was wrapped in a soft, elastic bandage I had bought at the hotel gift shop. The bruise had come up the size of a thumb, a dark purple oval running from the base of my hand up the inside of my forearm. I had a clean shirt on. I had put my hair up. I drank my coffee black, no sugar, because I had not slept and the coffee did not need to be polite. Trent walked up at 8:11. He was in PT gear. His eyes were shadowed. He had not slept either. He sat down on the bench beside me without asking if he could. He started with an apology. It was not a good one. Look, I was drunk. I didn't see what was happening. Bryce is a good guy when he's not. I'll talk to him. I let him finish. I did not interrupt. When he was done, I set my coffee on the bench between us and turned to face him. Sit down, Trent. He was sitting. He looked confused. I waited a beat. The apology you just gave is for yourself, not me. You feel bad about how this looks. You're not sorry about what happened. There is a difference. I have known the difference since I was 9 years old. He opened his mouth. I held up my hand. The man who put his hands on me last night put his hands on me in front of you. Your first instinct was not to stand up. Your first instinct was to laugh. Your second instinct was to tell him I was a desk officer. You called me a desk officer in front of him. You handed him permission, Trent. He looked at the water. I didn't think you would. Stop. I do not need you to tell me what you didn't mean. I have been listening to what the men in our family did not mean for 37 years. He flinched. Good. He tried the next move in the family playbook. I'll call Dad. I'll tell him what happened. Dad will set Bryce straight. He'll call the recon battalion. I shook my head. Walter has spent 40 years assuming my job was nothing. Walter does not get to set anyone straight on my behalf. You do not get to outsource this. You laughed. You don't get to call our father to fix it. He sat with that for a long time. The water moved under the dock. A sea lion made a sound somewhere east of us. I let the silence sit. I had learned silence from my mother. I knew how to sit in it. Finally, Trent said very quietly, "What do you want me to do?" I had been working on this sentence for 9 hours. I want you to do nothing for me. I want you to tell our father what happened in your own words, in person, by tonight. I want you to drive home from Coronado today, walk into the kitchen in Jacksonville and tell him. Not on the phone. In the kitchen. Then I want you to go to Bryce. Not as my brother, as his teammate. I want you to tell him who I am. Not the parts that are still classified. The parts he should have figured out before he reached across that table. Trent was quiet. And the third thing. I waited until he turned and looked at me. I want you to know what I have been doing for the last 4 years. I want you to know that the cover you wore on your last rotation in the Black Sea was mine. I want you to know that the night your unit lost contact for 40 hours in March of last year, the reason your communications came back up was because I had pre-positioned a redundant satellite uplink with a non-official cover identity I had spent 8 months building. I have been protecting you, Trent. I have been protecting you from the only thing I knew you could not survive. The knowledge that you had been wrong about me your whole life. He did not speak. He sat on the bench and looked at his hands. After a long time, he said, I want to ask you something. Was Beirut my unit too? I told him yes. The team Bryce was attached to was the team Trent had been attached to for the last 2 rotations. The cover I had built had brought both of them out. The cover I had built had brought my brother home from a port he was not allowed to tell me he had been in. He put his face in his hands. He did not cry. My brother does not cry. He sat with his face in his hands for 2 minutes by the dock clock. Then he sat up. I'll do it today. All 3. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean anything yet. I told him it didn't mean nothing. It just didn't mean what he wanted it to mean yet. He stood up. He walked back up the marina path. He did not look back. I watched his back until he disappeared around the corner by the coffee stand. Patty waved at him. He didn't see her. I waved back. I finished my coffee. I sat on the bench for another 20 minutes by myself. The sun came up over the bridge. I filed the report from my hotel room at noon. I flew back to Dulles on Sunday afternoon, May 17th. I drove home to my apartment in Reston, Virginia, in the same rental car I had been borrowing for a week. I unpacked, I made dinner, I went to bed at 9. I slept 11 hours. I woke up at 8 in the morning on Monday, May 18th, and I went to my office at the Defense Intelligence Agency. My director's name is Hannah Neves. She is a retired Army Brigadier General. She served 26 years in the Military Intelligence Corps, took her star in 2015, retired in 21, and joined DIA the next month as a senior civilian. She is 56, she is 6 feet tall, she is the closest thing the building has to a person who never blinks. She called me into her office at 09. I had not been at my desk 20 minutes. She had a printed copy of an after-action narrative on the desk in front of her. It was Marsh's. He had filed it Sunday morning. I had not yet filed mine. I had filed a preliminary report from the hotel Saturday, but the long version, the one with the personal narrative, was still in my drafts. She gestured at the chair. "Sit down, Adelaide." I sat. She looked at me. She is a woman who looks at people. She does not look around them or past them. She looks at them. "Commander," she said. "The lieutenant commander's report landed on my desk before yours. I want you to know I have read it. I want you to know what it says before you decide what yours will say. He has not asked for anything from you. He has told me what happened, in his words, with the names of the Marines involved. And he has recommended an aggravated assault charge through Marine Corps administrative process, not a court-martial. He has recommended a reduction in rank, removal from Special Operations Attachment, and reassignment. He has told me what your brother said and where your brother was standing. He has told me he is prepared to repeat any of this on the record." She paused. "He has not put a word in your mouth. He has not characterized your reaction. He has not speculated about your relationship with your brother. He has told me the facts as he observed them, and then he stopped." I nodded. "Commander, you don't owe me a performance. Tell me what happened." I told her. I told her in 20 minutes the way I had practiced telling it in the shower that morning. I did not embroider. I did not soften. I did not protect my brother. I told her the truth I had told Trent at the marina. I told her about the wrist. I showed her the wrist. The bruise was 4 days old and already turning yellow at the edges. I told her about Bryce. I told her about the booth. I told her about Marsh. I told her, at the end, about my brother laughing. Neves listened without interrupting. When I was done, she nodded once. "All right, I will support what the lieutenant commander has recommended. I am going to recommend, in addition, that the Marine Corps liaison work with you directly on the language of the administrative finding. You will have a voice in that document, not a veto." "A voice. I will arrange it this week. Commander, is there anything else you would like to tell me?" There was. "Brigadier, with respect, I would like to attend the team brief Lieutenant Commander Marsh wants to give on the Beirut Protocol. I have decided I do want to be in the room." She nodded. "I will make the call." I went back to my desk. I filed the long version of my report by close of business. The wrist healed by the end of the second week. The administrative process against Bryce moved faster than I had expected. He was reduced in rank to sergeant, removed from SEAL Team Attachment, and reassigned to a non-special operations Marine unit at Camp Pendleton. The reduction was unusual. The removal from SEAL Attachment was the punishment that landed. I was told later, by Iris, that he had sat in a chair across from Marsh and Vance and listened to a 15-minute version of what he had done and who he had done it to. He had not interrupted. In Jacksonville, my brother walked into our parents' kitchen on Tuesday night, May 19th. He sat at the table. He told my father what had happened. My mother was at the counter. My father was in his work shirt. The kitchen light was on. My father did not say anything for 90 seconds. Then he asked one question. "And what did you do, son?" Trent told him. He used my words. He told Walter he had laughed. He told Walter he had called me a desk officer. He told Walter what Marsh had said and what Marsh had not said. He told Walter where my wrist was now and what color the bruise had been on Saturday morning at the marina. My father did not speak again for an hour. He stood up. He walked out the back door and sat down on the porch. He did not turn on the porch light. My mother brought him a coffee at 11. He did not drink it. She left it on the railing beside him. She came inside. She sat in the kitchen with Trent. They did not speak. My mother called me Tuesday night at 12:15. She was in the kitchen. The porch light was off. My father was a shadow on the porch in the dark. "He is sitting out there, Addie. I have not seen him like this in 48 years of marriage. I have not seen him like this since his own father died." I did not say much. I did not know what to say. "He's going to write you a letter, Addie. I don't know when, I just know he is." I told her I loved her. I told her to go to bed. I told her to leave him alone. I hung up. I sat on my couch in Reston for a long time. I did not turn the television on. The work I had been doing for 15 years had finally been seen. The seeing was not the gift I had been told it would be. The seeing was a man on a back porch in Jacksonville staring at an old coffee cup. I sat with that. I sat with all of it. I went to bed at 1. I slept badly. I woke up at 6. I went to work. The team brief happened on Thursday, May 28th, in a sensitive compartmented information facility at Naval Special Warfare Development Group, Dam Neck, Virginia. The room was windowless, with a long oval table, 6 rows of chairs behind the table, a screen on the front wall, and the smell of recycled air every classified room in America has, regardless of which agency runs it. There were 20 operators in the room. Marsh was at the front, Damon Vance was at the back. 20 trident pins glinted in the overhead light. My brother was in the 3rd row in his service uniform, his recon insignia on his collar. I sat in the back row in my Navy service uniform. Khaki shirt, black tie, the gold oak leaves of a commander on my collar. I had not put on my service uniform since the morning I had flown to Coronado. The uniform felt like a costume. The men in the room did not feel like a costume. The men in the room were the work I had been doing for 4 years. Marsh stood up. He did not introduce me. He walked the team, minute by minute, through the Beirut Compromise of October 2023. He used a redacted timeline on the screen. He named the asset who had burned. He named the safe house that had not been compromised. He named the city, Tripoli, where the secondary protocol had taken them out. He did not name me until 45 minutes in. Then he named me. The reason you walked out of Tripoli was not luck. It was a 40-hour-old protocol Commander Whitlock filed in March of that year. She filed it because she had been watching the asset and the asset's network for 9 months. She did not need it until we needed it. The day we needed it, she had already needed it. That is the work. Stand up, Commander. I stood. 20 operators stood with me. 20 trident pins came to attention. My brother was on his feet. He did not look at his feet. He looked at me. I will not tell you I did not feel something in that moment. I felt it. I felt it the way you feel the sun in the spring after a long, cold winter. I felt it in my chest. I felt it in the place behind my eyes that had been trying to dry up for 15 years. But the something I felt was not joy. It was relief. The work had been seen. The work had been seen by the people the work was for. That was enough. I did not need a parade. I had not wanted a parade. I had wanted the men whose lives were authored by a quiet room in Virginia to know, just once, that the quiet room existed. Marsh sat at ease. The team sat. He turned the screen back on. He kept briefing. I sat back down. My brother sat back down. I could see the back of his head. He did not turn around. He did not have to. After the brief, I walked out of the skiff and into the hallway. My brother was waiting for me by the water cooler. He had something in his hand. He held it out. It was a small unit coin from his recon company. The face of the coin was the unit crest. The back of the coin was an engraved date, June 12th, 2023. It was the coin I had given him for his promotion to gunnery sergeant 3 years ago. I had ordered it from a craftsman in Pennsylvania, and I had engraved the back of it myself with the date he had pinned. I had put it in his hand at a restaurant in Jacksonville and told him I was proud of him. He had nodded and put the coin in his pocket, and we had not talked about it again. He put it in my palm. I held on to it. I just never told you why. I closed my hand around it. I told him thank you. I told him to go back to his recon company. I told him I would see him soon. The letter from my father arrived at my apartment in Reston on Sunday, May 31st. 2 pages, handwritten in pencil. He had drafted in pencil and not redone it in ink. The pencil was important. My father had spent 30 years in a Marine Corps that did not write a single thing of consequence in pencil. The pencil was a man who had not known how to start and had decided to start anyway. He apologized for 40 years of getting it wrong. He did not make excuses. He said the words, "I am proud of you." He said he should have said it the day I was commissioned at Charlottesville, and that he was going to say it now, every time he saw me, until he did not have a voice anymore. He said his own father, my grandfather Hal, had told him once that the people who do not need to be seen do the most. He said he had not listened to his father. He said he was sorry I had paid for it. I read the letter on the floor by the front door. I sat there for a long time. I did not cry. I had finished crying a long time ago. I read the letter twice. I put it in the same desk drawer in my apartment where I keep the unit coin. I called my mother. I told her I had gotten it. I told her to tell my father I loved him. I told her I would call him in a few days when I had the words. Bryce wrote me a letter 4 weeks later. He sent it through proper channels at his new unit at Camp Pendleton. It was 1 page. It was not eloquent. It said he had been raised in a town in Texas to think a woman alone at a corner booth, working on a laptop, was a target. He said he knew now what I had actually been. He said he was going to spend the rest of his enlistment trying to be a Marine his future commanding officer would not have to apologize for. He signed it, Sergeant Bryce Ramos. He did not write any rank above his current one. The dropped chevron was on the page. I put his letter in the drawer with my father's letter and my brother's coin. I closed the drawer. I went back to work. Spring in Reston is the kind of spring that does not give you space to think. The Defense Intelligence Agency does not slow down. The SEAL team Marsh commanded was already planning the next rotation. The covers I built were holding. I worked. I went home. I made dinner. I read books on my couch. I called my mother on Sundays. My brother called me on a Sunday at the end of May. He did not need anything. He asked me how my week had been. We talked for 40 minutes. I do not remember a single specific thing we said. I remember the feel of the call. I remember the quality of the silences. He let me talk for the first time since we had been children. He did not fill the silences with anything. He asked one question at a time, and he waited for the answer. At the end of the call, he said, "Ad, I will let you go. Call me back when you can." He had never said that to me before. He had always ended calls with a request, or with a joke, or with an awkward, "I love you" that he was already half off the line by the time he said. This time he just let me go. I called him back 2 days later. I did not have a reason. I had not had a reason to call my brother without a reason since I was 12 years old. My parents drove up to Virginia on the weekend before Memorial Day. They stayed at a hotel near my apartment in Reston for a long weekend. My father had not driven north of North Carolina in 9 years. He drove the truck up the coast with my mother in the passenger seat. He was tired the way men in their late 60s get tired now. My mother carried his bag through the hotel lobby. He let her. On Saturday morning, I drove them to the public sidewalk in front of my office building. I cannot take family members inside. I have never been able to. I parked my car in the lot across the street. We walked up the sidewalk and stood at the corner across from the main entrance. My father, in plain clothes, a flannel shirt over a polo, stood and looked up at the building for a long time. He did not speak. He did not ask me questions. He looked up at the windows of the floor I work on. He could not have known which floor was mine. I had not told him. He looked at all of them, the way a man looks up at a cathedral when he does not know which window the saint he came to see is behind. He said one thing. He said it without taking his eyes off the building. "This is what you do." It was not a question. It was a statement. I told him yes. He nodded. He kept looking up. My mother stood on his right, holding his arm. After a long time, we walked back to the car. Marsh sent me a note that Friday. He sent it through the official secure messaging system. It read, "All hands accounted for, all paper holding. Signed only with the letter M." The note was 3 lines of metadata and 1 sentence. It was the only thank you a SEAL team commanding officer knew how to send. I printed it. I put it in the drawer with the other things. In the first week of June, my director called me into her office. She handed me a sealed envelope. She told me what was in it. She told me she had been told by a man in another building, in confidence, that the Captain Promotion Board for Naval Intelligence would meet later in the year and that my package would be in the first sequence of files reviewed. She did not tell me I had been selected because she did not know. She told me the board would meet. She told me the package she had submitted on my behalf was a good package, in her judgment. She told me to take the rest of the day off. I did not take the day off. I went back to my desk. I worked until 6. I drove home. I made dinner. I called Iris. Iris was the person I called when something was happening that I did not know how to feel about yet. She listened. She said, "Addie, you are going to be a captain. Stop pretending you do not know." I told her I was not pretending. I told her I did not know. I told her the board had not met. She told me she was buying a bottle of wine to drink on my behalf the night the results came out. I told her I loved her. I hung up. I sat in my kitchen and watched the evening light move across the counter and thought about how a year ago I would not have believed any of it. I drove down to Jacksonville on the Friday of Memorial Day weekend. The captain selection had not happened yet at the time of this drive. The promotion board was still ahead of me. What I had was the early summer and a reconciliation that had begun in May and was still soft enough that you could have pushed it the wrong way with a wrong word. I had a casserole in the back seat in a glass dish. My mother had asked me to bring her grandmother's potato gratin recipe. I had made it the night before. The dish was wrapped in a kitchen towel. I pulled into the driveway at 1 in the afternoon. Trent was on the porch. He was in jeans and a sweatshirt. He had grown his beard out a little. He stood up when he saw the car. He came down the steps. He took my bag from the back seat before I had asked him to. He took the casserole. He hugged me on the doormat and held on a beat longer than he ever had. He said, very quietly, "Hey, Commander." I laughed. "Not captain yet, Gunny." He grinned. "Close enough." The kitchen smelled like my mother's kitchen has smelled my entire life. Onions, garlic, the bread she bakes on Saturdays, the coffee she drinks all day. She kissed me on the temple. She turned back to the stove without making a moment of it. My father was at the kitchen table, reading the paper in a flannel shirt. He stood up when I walked in. He had never stood up when I walked into a room. He hugged me. He did not say anything yet. He let me go. He sat back down. He gestured to the chair across from him. I sat. He did not say anything for a moment. Then he said, "You drive down all right?" I told him I had. The traffic on Interstate 95 had been light. He nodded. He folded the paper. He set it on the corner of the table. He looked at my mother at the stove. He looked at my brother in the doorway. He looked at me. He said, "I have been practicing something. I do not know if I will say it right. I am going to say it anyway." He stopped. He took a breath. My mother turned the burner down. Trent leaned against the doorframe. "Addie, I have been your father for 37 years. I have been a Marine for 30 of those years. I have been wrong about what those two facts meant for 37 years. I am sorry. I am proud of you. I have been proud of you for a long time. I do not know why I did not say it. I am going to say it now. I am going to keep saying it." He stopped. He looked at his hands on the table. I did not say anything for a long time. I looked at my father's hands. They were old hands. They had been Marine Corps hands my whole life. They had carried gear. They had carried my brother. They had not carried me very often. They were on the table now, palms down, fingers spread, the way a man puts his hands down when he does not know what to do with them. I reached across the table and put my hand on top of his. I said, "Dad, I love you." He turned his hand over. He held mine. He said, "I love you too, kid." It was the first time he had called me kid in 23 years. We sat that way for a long time. My mother turned the burner back up. The casserole went in the oven. My brother walked across the kitchen and put his hand on my shoulder for a second, just a second, the way he had done when I was 12 and he was 9, and I had fallen off the dock at the marina, and then he walked past me and sat down at the table and started in on the bread. We had dinner that night. It was not a Marine Corps dinner, it was a Whitlock dinner. My father said grace. He thanked his wife and his son and his daughter. He used the word Adelaide. He said the words. The whole prayer was 4 sentences. He thanked God for bringing his family home. He thanked God for the boy and the girl. He used my name and Trent's name. He did not call us the kids. After dinner, Trent and I sat on the back porch, the same porch where my father had sat in the dark with a cold coffee 3 weeks earlier. Trent had brought 2 cold drinks. He handed me one. We sat in the rocking chairs my father had made in the garage 20 years ago. Trent said after a while, "Ad, I want to ask you something I should have asked you 20 years ago. What do you actually do?" I told him. I told him as much as I was allowed. I did not tell him names. I did not tell him operations. I told him the shape of it. I told him about the quiet room. I told him about the building of people and the building of paper and the building of the door a man walks back through. I told him about the protocol I had filed in March of 2023 that had brought his team out of Tripoli. He listened. He did not interrupt. He drank his drink. When I was done, he said, "Ad, thank you for all of it." I told him he was welcome. I drove back to Reston on Sunday morning, 280 miles up the coast in the early summer sun. The radio was low, the windows were cracked. I passed Norfolk at noon. I passed Richmond at 2. I thought about the bar in Coronado. I thought about the bruise on my wrist that was long gone. I thought about the laptop I had replaced. I thought about the report I had filed. I thought about the brother who had finally asked, "If you have been the quiet one in your family, the one whose work nobody asked about, the one who has been protecting people who could not see you, I want you to hear me. The work was real. You were always real. And the day they finally see you, that day comes, sometimes from the people you love, sometimes from a stranger in a uniform in a bar. But it comes." My phone rang on the passenger seat. The name on the screen was Trent. I let it ring. I let it ring. I knew now that he would call back. "If you have been the quiet one in your family, the one whose work nobody asked about, the one who has spent years protecting people who could not see you, I would love to hear your story in the comments. What was the moment they finally saw you? Was it a stranger in a uniform? A sibling who finally listened? A sentence you had been waiting 20 years to hear? Drop your story below. Like the video if it landed with you. And hit subscribe if you have not already.